Hey, what's up, investors? My name is Devin Moreno, and I'm an investor here in the Baltimore City DMV area. And today I wanted to go over some of the pros and cons of managing or operating a duplex conversion, as they call them, or honestly an unregulated duplex. Essentially all it is a single family home that's been chopped into a duplex. And sometimes you'll even see them chopped into triplexes or even quads in some cases, but they're still single family homes, all under 1 meter. I wanted to go over some of the pros and cons of doing that. The obvious pro of doing that is you make a lot more money chopping up the house and renting it out different ways. Of course, I do it a little bit more differently where I do rooming houses. I own a management company that manages rooming houses for other people, but I will manage these as well. I'm pretty specialized in getting these type of products to work. We're gonna go over some of this layout of this house. This is a single family home that is 3 bed, 1 bath, but it has a 1 bed and 1 bath in the basement as well. So technically it's a 4-2. I actually did a video on this and one that I actually live in. This one I don't, and it's really small. The basement area, which I'm gonna be taking you through, is just, it's got 1 bedroom, very simple bedroom. It's got a washer and dryer, which is huge. We'll talk about it. It's got its own bathroom, full bathroom, got a staircase area that's kind of blocked off. We'll talk about that as well. And then a little kitchenette. And that's really it. I'm gonna go over some of the things that I would look for when I'm operating this and some of the challenges with this one that you'll see in other houses. So the big one is talking about the kitchenette. What is the difference between a kitchen and a kitchenette? At what point does it become a kitchenette? It's the stove. The stove is not allowed to be installed, otherwise it is a second kitchen, and that's actually illegal. A lot of people don't know that, but you cannot legally have 2 stoves in a house. Now, a lot of investors will get around this by simply having one of the countertops not caulked down to the cabinets, and so you can remove the cabinet pretty easily. They won't like screw the cabinet into the wall. So that way, for appraisal purposes or any other type of regulatory purpose, you can just put the cabinet back in, it hides it. Otherwise, you have to take the stove out whenever you want to not get caught. It won't be a one piece like this though. They'll have the countertop where it's like a separate piece is what they'll do. On my channel, I do talk about all the gray areas. So I just want to tell you, hey, this is how it is in real estate. This is what's happening. So that's something if you're interested. But otherwise, yeah, you normally can't have a 30 amp plug or any gas lines or anything that would connect to it. This one though is a true kitchenette. We supply the microwave and a little convection oven, and normally you'll see them put little hot plates here on the kitchen counter. But other than that, it'll have like, let's say a sink. It's kind of awkwardly placed in this house, kind of weird, but that's where the water line was. They actually pulled it from the bathroom. That is ultimately what makes it a kitchen. And as long as you don't put that in there, technically you could divide the house in this way. Now, one thing you really can't do as much, especially for like rental inspections, is really blocking the door. You'll actually see the staircase behind me. It would normally go up to the unit above, and we actually block that. Now, a fire marshal one I won't care. There's other ways out of the house. It's not a big deal. Blocking one door, it's like as if a wall was there. There's plenty of egress around here. So it's not a safety issue. It's more just simply, you're not really supposed to do that from a rental licensing perspective. In this house where I'm at in this county, they don't actually have rental licensing laws. So that kind of allows the owner to get away with it in this particular case. If you do have rental licensing laws, they probably might get a little tricky around this whole idea. In a normal 2-unit building, you're gonna insulate the drywall in between the units. So above me is the actual house. It is separated by a 1/2 inch thick drywall, and then there's a subfloor and then the regular floor. All of that has porous and holes and whatever that allows the sound to just travel right through. Even while I'm filming this video, had the tenant been upstairs while me filming it, they probably could hear literally everything. The best way to really deal with that is wherever the separation wall is between the 2 units, you want to put in insulation foam and then also have 5/8 thick drywall, but more importantly, you need something, a pocket, an air pocket where the drywall gets stuck. So oftentimes acoustic glue, and you put on another sheet of drywall. You want the sound to get caught in there before it hits the wood where it transfers to the other house. I talk about this on my other channel in the duplex that I live in. I actually did that. Here though, this creates a lot of surface here that you have to insulate. So the owner decided not to do that. So of course you can hear them walking upstairs and all that. And of course, who wants to hear that? So you now have all these sound problems that, of traveling up and down. In fact, the tenant who previously lived here had like a music war basically, where they would like purposely blast their music because they were mad at the tenant upstairs. It was kind of ridiculous. That's one element that I'll definitely like kind of worry about. Also, the HVAC system carries sound as well. For all of you who remember the days where you were a kid and you would listen to the HVAC vents and you could hear your parents talking, well, you can do it here too if the HVAC is actually connected. Fortunately for here, it is not. We actually installed one of these mini split units. These things are actually AC and heat, so therefore the tenant actually, they don't interact with the temperature. That is massive. I would absolutely recommend that, because if you're sharing the HVAC, then you might as well do a rooming house. I don't think it's that effective for two separate families to do that, because you have more than just heat and AC that travels through. You also have sound, of course, but you also have smells. So you're gonna deal with cooking and of course, in the case of our last tenant, weed and all of these other things that will travel through the vents. And it does travel through this porous drywall as well. So if you don't insulate, then you're also gonna get those smells to travel through the actual walls. Even though in this house, we don't have HVAC, unfortunately the smells do carry through. They also get through that door that blocks both units. We had to actually insulate that door to try to reduce it, but it doesn't completely prevent it unless you like seal it off. Like I said, it's gotta be pretty thick to stop those smells from getting through. The temperature, highly recommend splitting it. In the house that I live in, one of the houses I live in, the mini split is on one of the rooms, but in the other room, I share the ductwork with the other side. What I just did was go ahead and cut the ductwork off, and then I put in 2 more mini splits. You're gonna have to make sure you have the electrical capability for this though. Just make sure, because one of these mini split heads, only 2 of them can operate on one condenser unit outside. So you have to get another condenser unit if you want to operate any more than 2 of these heads. And generally you need 1 per room. That being said, we had to create some sort of attraction here. Like, why would a tenant want to live here? To be honest, a lot of tenants actually want to live here. We did not have a problem renting this unit multiple times, so this has never been a difficulty for us. So one thing we did to make this really attractive for tenants was to make it super pet friendly. You're gonna notice there's tile flooring all over the place. We also use 3/4 inch baseboards, so that way it's very cheap baseboard they can chew on. We also, in the windowsills, made sure that there wasn't any actual like wood sills. We normally will remove the blinds because cats love to destroy that stuff. Now in this house, they still have it, but we just won't replace them if a cat destroys it. I don't charge pet fee and pet rent. That's actually pretty normal for me anyway, except for my rooming houses, I don't do them there. That's how we made this an attractive unit. So of course we get lots of people who apply with dogs, which a large pool of the renter population has. Now another thing to make sure you have is the washer and dryer. In this unit, we had to definitely get a second one in here. You don't want them sharing under any circumstances. So let's say this unit did not have a washer and dryer. Well, then we simply wouldn't install one. It just is better off than having them share a washer and dryer. Wouldn't have them do that. Speaking of sharing, you also want to be careful about the utilities. Make one unit pay for all the utilities, and then the other unit, $100 of their rent goes toward a stipend that pays the tenant upstairs. That way you don't have to split it. I don't have to worry about calculating month to month who may used how much, whatnot. The only issue you end up having is when the seasons transition over to usually about winter, the AC unit will kick on, and a lot of times that does absorb a lot more electricity. The tenant will think that the downstairs unit is the reason that's happening, when really it kind of would have happened anyway for most single family homes. So just be aware that you might have that little bit of a dispute. But other than that, yep, washer and dryer, definitely recommend it for both units. So a few more things to touch on that I've noticed about these type of houses. Number one, the electric panel is always going to be a little bit of an issue. When you have the electric go out in the unit above, they have to come down in the unit below in order to switch the breakers. So that creates a few problems. So what I'd recommend doing is making sure you have the regular circuit breakers and not the arc fault circuit breakers. As of new code, they often require the arc fault circuit breakers in there. A lot of electricians, what they'll do is they'll just switch them out for you. Not a big deal. The reason why is because the arc fault breakers actually trip a lot more often and are very, very sensitive. Also make sure that the circuitry here is all completely independent of what's upstairs. You don't want them sharing to the point where they can easily, keep tripping over and over again. Same with the unit upstairs. You want to make sure that they're not running too many daisy chains all over the place. That's one thing that could get annoying. However, I'd say in most of these duplex conversions, the amount of times that breaker trips is super rare. It's actually maybe once a year. It doesn't happen too often. So fortunate that's not an issue. What I would do as far as the mailman is just simply set up a second mailbox. So many mailmen have seen this situation that they just go ahead and separate it. A lot of times I'll just go ahead and put a little label essentially on the mailboxes, so that way, hey, you can know these 2 mailboxes, this one's for this person, this one's for this person. The mailman has never had an issue with that. They've just kept delivering it as per. Now in my house, we actually have the mail way far away from the house in one of those posts. Then you can just put another posted mailbox, and usually that's not a problem whatsoever. Outside of that, you got trash, pretty easy. I usually will actually separate the trash cans and just give them both their own trash cans, so that way they're not really, fighting over who's filling up the trash cans. I would have 2 lock boxes on the property. The reason why is in the case of lockouts, you're gonna wanna give the tenant the access to their own lockbox. If you have both keys in the same lockbox, well, now you gotta come out there to change the code because you just gave them access to the other unit as well. I would separate that out so that way there's no confusion there. As far as lawn care, I would really have one tenant, usually the one with the bigger house, take care of the lawn. The house is gonna feel more like it's theirs anyway. And have the other tenant in a space as small as this one, just go ahead and, that's just part of it. It just comes with it and the lawn is taken care of for them. Most of the time you want to stick not a whole family in the house. For example, in this top-down structure, I probably wouldn't put a family of 5 above here because I said about the noise issue. And the same down here, I probably wouldn't put a huge family here because you're gonna have issues like, say, for parking, a lot of cars outside, you can't handle it as much. Or, maybe it's just gonna be very loud, a lot of foot traffic. That sort of thing is another thing I'll look at with these duplex conversions. And the final things that I think I'll mention is probably with the appliances themselves. A lot of times you're gonna have the filter in one location, easy, just have the tenant who has access to the filter, change the filter, not a problem. Hot water. Normally, as long as you just have the hot water heater to be big enough, or even use one of those instant hot water heaters, or tankless really is what they're called, the hot water never runs out in these houses. I've never heard of a complaint like that. In fact, more often the complaint being when it kicks on, there's noise, like say in this basement sort of situation, but never gonna have an issue with that sort of thing. Anything else, honestly, really is so minor that I've honestly forgotten to even talk about it. So maybe you have a question about something. If you have a question about these duplex conversions or how they're done, comment below, let me know, and I will talk to you all very soon.